What's going on? Boys, arm yourselves. Order development, life stuff. I'm not sure which we're going to categorize this video as, but we have a bunch of things we want to talk about. We are almost certainly not going to get to all of them, and we are going to take our time with this one. Meaning, this video is going to be very short, because whenever I say we're going to try to be brief, the videos end up being a lot longer than they should. I've gone back to Cultist Simulator to try to give it a fair shake this time. I still don't recommend it, because even once you understand it and have training wheels on, the game is so tedious. But I'm playing it for the same reason I watched the first 2 seasons of Mad Men. I want to see popular ideas about this sort of thing. Not what you should do, not what happens in reality, but popular ideas to draw inspiration from. And in Cultist Simulator, there is a lot of inspiration. If you're willing to sit through 30 hours of RNG to get to it. A while ago, we talked about stress metamorphosis. Enduring these stress attacks brought on by a lot of thinking and a lot of circumstances you can't control, but you are expected to contend with, and then emerging from them a little bit more dead, but also a little bit stronger. And that happened again today, and I noticed a pattern in it, but we'll get to that. So in Cultist Simulator, you can dedicate yourself to one of a few major self goals, aspirations, and you can found a few or one of a few orders branching off from those goals. And in my current run, I am experimenting with the unflinching order using the power aspiration or the power ascension. And it's interesting because once you get serious about power, you begin your ascension in levels. And your ascension is not what you might think it is, power, the ability to exert power on other people. It is your rise to invulnerability first. With each stage, you cut and burn yourself more, which, coincidentally, might sound a little familiar, but with each stage, you can endure more punishment, and it hurts less. And people warn you, you are going to burn yourself alive. People have burned themselves alive and become ashes doing exactly what you're doing, and it's your responsibility, your duty, to spit in the face of rationality and say, I don't think I will, and then prove them wrong. And the pattern I'm beginning to notice with these stress attacks is they come on with increasingly less rationality and more intensity too, once they're in. But then once you emerge, you feel those gains a lot faster. And although the rush you feel is not equal with the strength you'll hold, you are stronger than you were, and you wouldn't be stronger than you were if you didn't feel that going beyond. I've been lifting weights again, and I'm reminded of a weightlifting lesson that applies to everything and applies to everything we've just discussed, and everything is harmonious. If you say, my goal is to bench 2 plate or 225, and you work hard, you probably will end up benching 2 plate. But it will be an achievement. If that is your peak goal, then even if you achieve it, it will always be something you need to strain for. But if you instead say, I'd really like to bench 315, you may not reach 315, but striving toward that goal, you will reach 225, and it will become no thing. 225, your initial goal, the peak you strained for, will become just a doorway you get used to walking through into deeper waters. And I do like the spiritual, mystical side of lifting, because in terms of benching, 225 really does feel like the adept weight. 225 isn't incredible for people who are in it, but it is incredible for people who are not in it. It's shocking to people who are not in it. And beyond 225 is where weird, wacky shit starts happening. And this is not a groundbreaking sentiment. You know, shooting much higher than you intend and hitting lower but getting higher than you would have otherwise, that's not groundbreaking. But to feel it in practice is a different sort of understanding. And I think once you have that practical level of understanding, those lessons mean a lot more and you can use them for a lot more. Unreasonable, irrational desire and ambition are your best friends. No one says you need to take over the world in this life. No one says you can take over the world in this life. And maybe nothing means anything. Maybe atheist pluses are right. But that level of irrationality will make your life a lot more interesting, and it will ensure there's no wasted talent. Because you're going to need to burn all of that talent up to get even close to where you feel you're capable of. Now let's talk about dreams for a second, because I've had a few weird ones recently. In the first one, I was in this abandoned house with this big Asian dude and some other criminal, and there was a body. And the Asian dude asked me what I was doing here, and he started staring me down, and in my dream, I stared back at him, which is something I don't do these days because it's threatening and it almost never ends well. And of course, in the dream, it did not end well. The Asian dude took an ice pick and came up to me and stabbed it through my eye and killed me. And I've been thinking a lot about that dream because those sorts of aggressive stare downs are frustrating. On the one hand, if you look away, you're a punk. On the other hand, if you stare somebody down and you're a dude, well, I mean, if you're a woman too, frankly, if you're unlucky, you're going to incite violence that, no matter how it turns out, is not going to be good for anybody. So someone is pushing a lose-lose situation on you, and you just have to take it. Because you aren't in your orc era, of course. You're sober. You're aware you have more to lose than you think you do. And you're not a fighter. That's something I've been wrestling with lately. The fact I am not a fighter. You know, you fantasize about being Fedor Bugenhagen, but you really, really aren't. And we mentioned a while ago, there are no books on how to be a shithead effectively. There are no ways for men to develop high-level conflict tolerance. Normally, anyway. Dudes like being intimidating, but nobody wants to put on boxing gloves for fun. Not even training martial arts, not even settling beef, just putting on gloves and hitting each other and getting accustomed to getting hit. Dudes don't like doing it for some reason. Your options are Rex Kwon Do or a street fight that is not going to end well. There is no way to practice conflict tolerance, physical conflict tolerance, and that goes for social conflict tolerance too. I'm getting better at playing the politics game the way I'm comfortable with, but I have no conflict tolerance for a large, able-bodied male getting aggressive. I know I can deal with it because I have, but it doesn't feel like it. The options I feel, which are independent of the material outcome, are freeze up and roll up in a ball or get charged with something. Once again, no matter how it turns out. I'm lucky, I am very lucky, my autopilot can deal with these things in a somewhat satisfactory way, but emotionally there's no modulation. It is 0, punk, or 100, booked. And neither are good, neither feel good. It's like the world today does not want you to learn how to engage in conflict. It wants you to be a pushover or a maniac. And in terms of getting anywhere, neither of those are useful. And I was at the gas station today, and I noticed this dude staring me down. I have never seen him before. Sunglasses, ball cap, thin blue line motherfucker. 6 foot something, monster. Staring me down. And I defaulted to looking away, and I was furious with myself the entire time. And maybe not just at myself, I was furious at everything. Thinking about it now, I think what I'm feeling is I would at least like the opportunity to get my ass beat so I can at least let it go. So I can at least feel like I did something. But the thing is, you aren't allowed even to get beaten nowadays. Your options are stand there and take it or lose everything. And one of the things I've been wrestling with is that might not be a problem for everyone. Pride isn't just my biggest sin, it is the one I am calling it now is going to get me killed one day. Or is going to ruin my life utterly one day if I don't get killed. I hope I get killed. Like blackout drinking. I drank to blackout for the longest time when I was drinking heavy, but I also didn't know I was drinking to blackout because they're blackouts. And if you're drinking alone, which I was and you always should, drinking alone is the only way to drink, you don't realize what's happening. Pride, especially angry pride, operates the same way. You think pride isn't causing you problems, and then you realize it does in a flash. You realize when push comes to shove, pride controls you more than any level of rationality or discipline does. And when it happens, it's shocking. Realizing you don't have control over yourself. There are other captains in your vessel waiting to snatch the wheel away from you. And when that finally happens in a way you can't, and it's beautiful the way you will rationalize things away, or even hallucinate things away. When it happens in a way you cannot ignore, you realize the influence these other hands on the wheel are having on your life. I feel like a stay-in-my-lane guy. Typically, I act like a stay-in-my-lane guy. I present myself as a stay-in-my-lane guy. But all it takes is someone to swerve into my lane a little bit and I lose it, even if I don't act on it immediately. And on those smaller levels, that's the thing I'm wrestling with. Is it better to act on it on a small level so it doesn't fester, or is it better just to let it fester and then explode at some point? And some people will tell you, just don't let it bother you. And that's like me telling you just to stop breathing, which I hope you do. There's some things in your life you have to learn to deal with because you're never going to have them utterly under your control. That's why we focus on shadow development so much. Not to repress or to control your worst aspects, but to figure out how to act in concordance with them. And when I say pride, and this is going to be the end of me one day, is not just pride in how I feel about myself, right? That's difficult, but it's internal. No, my pride extends to other people. It's not enough to recognize that someone who has done something to me hasn't really harmed me in any way and let it go. It's also not enough to do something in return and get back at them successfully. Not even that's enough. There is this flaming, gnawing, can't let it rest feeling like a boar that's on fire and wrapped in ropes, struggling against the ropes, trying to get out, feeling that needs the other person, the offending person, to feel harmed and understand why they were harmed and that I'm the one harming them because they tried me. And I am not a fighter, and I'll probably never be one, so that's very difficult. You talk about life fantasies. My life fantasy is to be in a position I can hire a team of pranksters, and I pick out someone I hate, and they don't harm them. They don't harm them. All they do is, in the subtlest ways, fuck with people, make them paranoid, and make them miserable. Just a team of people who make everything that can go wrong in a person's life. Like a bureaucratic Murphy's Law. Or if nothing that grand, then again, just the ability to feel like I did something, even if it doesn't turn out well for me. Have my life, have my assets, got my ass beat, but I did something. Everything you don't do or don't say, action you don't take, kills you inside a little bit. Or at least kills me. I know people exist who don't feel this way, but I do, and the most I can do is manage it and figure out how to live with it, and not in a, cohabitation sort of way, but in a happy partnership sort of way. And I wonder if that ice pick dream was part of that omen, or was an omen for not just this event, but others like it. I've had to swallow my tongue a few times recently for smaller things. And we talk about omens. Another dream I had recently. I'm in the Spanish Civil War in a city in Spain. Which city? I don't know, because I know nothing about Spain. I know nothing about the Spanish Civil War other than it was important to Hemingway, and a few other details, but the flu. There's a plague going around, but it isn't a physical sickness. It's not an emotional sickness, it's not even a psychological sickness. People just catch this thing, and then they go comatose. wide-eyed. It's like this thing is disentangling people's consciousnesses from their bodies and leaving them lying in the streets. And a few people are walking around unaffected in a panic trying to do something but with no idea of what to do, because what do you do about something like this? And I think I'm one of them, and then I realize I'm not. And I'm lying there in the street, looking up at the sky, feeling all of my ability to think about anything going away. All I know is that it hurts, and I can think about fewer and fewer things until I can think about nothing. And then today, I get off work, I come home, and out of nowhere I am struck with this nausea, this dry mouth, this heat flash, this manual breathing thing, and this, well, you're familiar with the discomfort that comes from the nausea that isn't going to make you throw up. And all I can do is lie down and drink water and feel this, and it feels bad enough that I can't think about anything. Just trying to string together an idea about anything makes me more nauseous and makes me hurt more. Until there's nothing left but lying there, feeling like you need to throw up, and hurting. And it went away, but in terms of these weird, bad feeling episodes, this one was a weird one. I'm not used to... I normally walk around feeling a very low level of discomfort and nausea at all times. But this one, it came up to the surface and was unbearable. And the way these stress things work that's not the way they normally work. So was that dream connected to whatever this was? And if it was or is, how? Part of me is wondering if it was the sigils, like a sacrifice to rise beyond thing. If you want these things to work, you're going to need to suffer some very intense, arbitrary nausea and pain for a little while. No side effects. You're better now. Just totally arbitrary, bad feeling in order to secure the effects you want. Is that what's going on? Was there something I was supposed to get from the dream I didn't, so my unconscious gave me a conscious version of that, so I would have to, well, not think about it, but feel it and then think about it? What am I supposed to gather from your ability to think being taken away from you and even causing you harm if you try to engage with it? What am I supposed to take from that? Is it a death thing? Just a nice subtle reminder that death is not peaceful? A nice conscious reminder that doing your job cosmically is not going to feel good? Is not going to get you anywhere? Is not going to get you out of this? Is it stress? Just general paranoia? Because I have been very paranoid lately, and it's unfortunate because you should be paranoid. You should be very paranoid. Piece of advice I think I might have given before, but if I haven't, if you're dealing with stressful groups of people, antagonistic groups of people, and one of them comes to you trying to mediate, trying to be your friend, trying to get your side, don't trust them. If that person is openly associated with an antagonistic group, antagonistic to you, that person is not your friend. What they're doing is a high-level maneuver that takes advantage of your hope for the good in people or for the good outcome, and your weakness, your inability to deal with discomfort. right? Because what they're going to do is they're going to make you feel comfortable, make you feel like there is an option, a positive way out in which everyone can be happy, and they're either going to gather, extract valuable information from you, or they're going to lure you into a snare. Every time. Every time. And you are probably going to need to learn that lesson the hard way, because the hope and fear and pain, that works on people. And it takes those things being used against you to develop appropriate paranoia and contempt. And don't trust people on your side. It is choosing not to involve someone you are close with in something you care about. That's always the good decision, because people always will turn on you. And everything you gave them, you're going to see turned against you when they do. It is so much better to have professional, favor-based acquaintances you share nothing important with, but share small favors with, this for that, regularly, than it is ever to have friends. Never a good idea. And that is so horribly unfortunate. But if you let your physical and emotional pain intolerance control you, and you can't have it utterly under control. You're never going to have it totally under control. But if you let it make all of your decisions, you are ironically going to end up more hurt. And people are so clever. We talked a few videos ago about the ways interdimensional higher powers might use things we would never expect to spy on us, because we would never expect them. How would this even be used to spy on us? It just doesn't make sense to our minds, right? There are people alive right now who are at a level of development higher than you are, who are already not just thinking about these things, but know things they can use against you that you would never think of until you find them used on you. Paranoia is never going to hurt you, right? If you see a Pandora's box that you might even know is a Pandora's box, but part of you is thinking, well, maybe if I just open it, there's a chance there could be something good inside, or if we never open it, then we'll never know what's inside. Don't open it. You're going to open it anyway, but I think you reach a point, you learn it is always better to incinerate that box than it is to open it. Fuck what's inside. Horror is inside. Always. It's playing on your hope for something better. People play on your hope for something better. You have to stop hoping. You have to stop hoping. You have to get used to this hurt you feel and stop hoping things are going to be better. The world isn't going to give you anything better. People certainly aren't going to give you anything better. If you want better, you have to be able to make better or take better. And that is so painful because it spits in the face of everything you feel should be. And that's the reason I haven't entirely accepted what I'm saying yet, but every day we get a little bit closer. And maybe one day we'll be there. I think it's possible. For certain people. And I don't think you're ever going to become invulnerable. I don't think you are ever going to reach a point you don't hurt and feel it. I don't think you're ever going to be anything other than a human. But I think it is possible to understand humanity, accept it for what it is, accept it for what you are, and work in spite of that. As in, totally accepting humanity's evil and your evil, your failings, your weaknesses. Learn as many of the tricks as you can, and then do. There are other things on my mind, but I'm drawing a blank for now, and that's usually a good sign to stop talking. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.